What's the most horrifying how do you not know how to do this moment you've experienced with another person whilst adulting? I work as an EMT for a private company, so we mostly deal with nursing homes and the elderly. One day when I was about 6-8 months in, I got assigned a partner who was in my orientation class. He was a little older than me at the time, like mid-20s, but he seemed a little childish. Maybe he's just sheltered, I think to myself. Anyways, we got a patient I've had a few times before. She was a sweet, little old lady with COPD and CHF living at an assisted living. Call was for pneumonia. She's prone to this stuff so it wasn't a huge deal. Slap her on oxygen and keep her sitting up till we get to the hospital. The first red flag though, was this kid didn't know anything. He didn't know how to take a blood pressure. He couldn't find the medical history or medication on the paperwork, which is clearly labeled. He didn't even push the stretcher, just walk next to it with a hand on it. When I asked him about all that, he said my partners usually do that for me. So, I put her on an oxygen mask and sit her all the way up, mildly agitated. I tell myself it's just one shift with this kid. He's in the back with her and I tell him to just switch the oxygen from the bag, which is a small tank, to the main tank, which is huge, because with the amount of oxygen we're giving her, the bag will run out not even halfway before the hospital. It's about 25 minutes, which normally wouldn't be a huge deal. But when we pull up to the hospital and I open the back doors, I'm freaking shook. The oxygen mask isn't inflated, meaning she isn't getting oxygen. She's pale as crap. I can literally see her accessory muscles moving, struggling to breathe, and this kid was sitting behind her, with a clueless half smile on his face, looks at me and says the main tank is broken, so I left her on the bag. This woman, who needs oxygen without pneumonia, was barely breathing for at least 15 minutes, and this freaking idiot didn't even check. We take her into the hospital. I ask him to find an oxygen tank while explain to this woman's daughter what happened. He says he doesn't know where to look. I freaking find it and told him to talk to the daughter. When it's all said and done, I checked to see what's broken. He didn't turn on the tank. TLDR. EMT partner nearly kills a patient because he didn't know he had to open the oxygen tank to get oxygen to come out. Please tell me he's not an EMT anymore. This is terrifying. Was making dinner with my ex and her mom. They were talking about how they forgot to put on a can of corn to go with the meal. But that's okay. They can just microwave it, right? First it took two of them to use the can opener, as in they took turns because the cans are so strong. Look over and they have the can cut almost all the way around, but not around the lid. It's this weird, wavy, up and down the side of the can way. Basically took the last fifth of the can right off. I stare at them, but don't say anything because, hey, not my house. They've gotten this far, why point it out now and go back to what I'm doing. Moments later they congratulate themselves and move on to the next step, which apparently to both of them was just sticking the can straight in the microwave. Seconds later lots of bright flashes. Both of them leap away the microwave, so I have to come around the table and do the oh so heroic task of hitting the open button and stop the potential meltdown. The rest of the dinner was them so shocked that metal reacts like that in a microwave. Yes, even forks or spoons would do that, and how amazed they were it's never happened before. Flash forward a year and they're buying a new microwave. Turns out they've bought all their microwaves from this one store and the owner was surprised it's been so long. Turns out, he's a great guy, always helps them find the best deals and even jokes about how the extended warranty is for suckers. This is like 10 years ago. I was dating a 32-year-old and he asked me if I wanted to get together to watch a TV show. I said sure. What time is it on? He looks it up and says to me 8 Pacific 9 Central. I asked what was confusing him and he told me he wasn't sure if the show was on at 8 or 9. My man did not know what time zone we lived in. So I was like, okay, well you know what ocean we're near, right? Cause I was trying to get him to think about the Pacific time zone in terms of the giant body of water for which it was named, and he immediately got defensive and for real said why would I know that? I'm from Texas. He'd been living in San Francisco for 5 years and could see the Pacific Ocean out his window. When I took a food safe course, someone asked if they could wash a turkey with dish soap. He failed the course. But you can wash a turkey with dish soap, just be careful not to get it in their eyes because it really stings. Years ago, I bought a friend an electric kettle as a gift. Her boyfriend, who I'm still friends with and who passed along this story, came home one night to find her running out the front door of their apartment with the flaming kettle, and she threw it into the street. She was screaming about how it was a piece of junk because when she put it on the stove, over a flame, it caught fire and started to melt. He was laughing uncontrollably when he asked, "What did you think the cord was for?" They broke up soon after. As someone from a country where kettles are basically default household items, this is painful. Every few weeks I catch my roommate trying to put his metal tea strainer in the microwave. This is in spite of the fact that our first week living in this apartment, he destroyed the microwave and had to pay for a new one because he put a metal tea strainer in the microwave. You could have left it at him making tea in the microwave. P.S. This blew up. I am proud that my first silver is on a comment about respecting British culture. 19-year dude. How do you cook a fried egg? Gave him instructions and left him to it. Came back a while later to ask how it went. Fine in the end, but it took a few attempts because the yolk kept breaking. What do you mean kept breaking? Well, I kept throwing them away because I thought breaking the yolk made it poisonous. Once again, he was 19 years old. 3 months into our freshman year of college, a friend of mine developed a rash. I suggested he look into hypoallergenic sheets and swap out his others. His response: "I've used the same sheets since we moved in. It's not the sheets, mind you, not the same type of sheets, but the same exact sheets unchanged, and slept eaten upon etc. for 3 months." Worked at an on-campus store that sold a lot of essentials for students living at dorms. I had one girl ask me what laundry detergent was because she never did laundry. She asked if I could help her do her laundry, but I declined as I couldn't leave the register, which of course she was mad about. "Sorry, I have to actually do my job, lady." In a weird way, I am jealous of those people. I've done crap like that since I was physically able to, and I can honestly say they haven't missed much. I appreciate how, hopefully, it shaped me into a better person, but come on, it's boring AF. My friend in college once lamented, "Ugh, I have to pee and I just put a tampon in like 5 minutes ago. I hate having to pull them out dry. Also, it's such a waste." Her mother taught her that there is only one hole down there and peeing with a tampon in is not possible. It will freak up your bladder. Took a lot of me showing articles and diagrams and answering questions to convince her there are, indeed, 2 holes. She peed while the tampon was still in and called her mother in utter shock to share the good news. Oh dear God. When I first went to university, living in halls and realizing some people literally did not know how to cook a thing. There was one girl who bought chicken and kept it in the cupboard, despite being told by pretty much everyone else in the flat that it was meant to go in the fridge or freezer. Flat out refused to listen. Kept putting it in the cupboard. Don't know how she didn't get sick. Another flatmate who didn't eat potato for almost a year because he didn't know how to peel them and didn't want to try. I tried to teach him. Then he realized he could buy pre-prepared. One guy who decided to take a nap whilst cooking sausages for dinner. Just left them in the grill and only woke up when the fire alarms were going off and the whole building was being evacuated. Finally, 2 girls who again almost caused a fire if I hadn't found them. These 2 were actually my friends and I was looking for them. Found them in one of the kitchens about to cook a stir fry. They had a wok with about an inch depth of oil in the bottom, shimmering because it was so hot, and they weren't sure if it was hot enough to cook with yet. They were really glad I found them because they couldn't tell that it was boiling oil and were worried the food wouldn't cook. I was really glad I found them because if they had thrown their stir fry veg in there, it would have probably caused a fire, or at least spat boiling oil all over them. I turned it off and tossed one piece of veg in there. Turned black almost instantly. Honestly, I was just shocked and appalled that so many 18-year-olds had never cooked for themselves before, and even worse that their parents had sent them off to fend for themselves, not having taught them. It's actually scary thinking back. A friend who was pushing 40 had never paid a bill before. She had gone from living with her parents to living in a dorm to living with her parents again until she got married. Then she got divorced and was living on her own for the first time. Got a text from her asking if my power was out too. Then she realized it was just her. Her excuse was she never paid attention to the bills because she thought they were receipts and that the cost was included in her rent. Her water was cut off a couple weeks later and we had to talk about that too. I have many great stories about my former college roommate. Two of my favorites are, she wanted to make pasta. She put a pot on the stove and poured the noodles in. No water in the pot. Turned on the stove. After a while she asked me how come these aren't getting soft like when my mom makes them. She made brownies from a box. The box instructions say grease the bottom of an 8x8 pan before pouring in the brownie batter. You bet your butt this bee picked up the 8x8 pan, flipped it over, greased the bottom of it, and then flipped it back over and poured in the brownie batter. The brownie pan one made me laugh out loud in the bathroom. The consequence about it, A+ material. My GF's grandfather had started to be, let's say, less accurate when peeing standing and leaving a mess in the washroom. I suggested that there's nothing wrong with sitting down for peeing and that would make life easier for everybody. All her family stared at me like in shock. True, my GF and her family didn't know that males can pee while sitting. Everybody in that family thought that as a male, the only physical way to pee is standing. I was almost asked to demonstrate in front of them that it's possible. My girlfriend, now wife, put a pan of oil on too high of heat and it hit the flash point and caught fire. She freaked out and went to get a large thing of water and I stopped her and tossed the pan lid on top until the flames went out. Then she asked me why I stopped her. I was very thankful that I was there the first time she had a grease fire. Not only could she have hurt herself, but it was in a college dorm and the whole friggin' place could have gone up. Back in 06 or 07, was working selling a software licensing product to software vendors. I was working with a 50-something Californian lady, I'm from the UK, who was handling some of the incoming inquiries through our website. One day she asks, "Hey, we had a lead today from a company in Egypt. What should I do with it?" I said, well, follow it up of course. "Why would you ask?" She goes, "Because they're Arabs, and we're at war with the Arabs, aren't we? FML. I then had to give her an education on the Middle East. If only the Middle East and Central Asian situation was that easy. I remember when I first started dating my now husband, I was hanging out at his apartment waiting for him to get out of work. His place was a bit messy, so I decided I'd tidy up for him a bit. Fast forward to the next morning and he comes in a little shocked. "Why would you load the dishwasher like that?" I had never had a dishwasher before in my life, LMAO. We're talking cups facing up, big butt pan shoved in, the whole 9 yards. Thank God he stuck with me, LOL. I never had a dishwasher until I moved in with my husband. He's had one his whole life, but his mom loaded it most of the time. Wanting to do it right, I read the manual. Consequently, he's terrible at loading the dishwasher and it's become my job while he's in charge of unloading it. I take a weird sort of pleasure in getting the most efficient placement possible. 60-year-old woman was shocked that I bought 12 cans at once. Then she was shocked again to find out buying in bulk is cheaper. She has always been a stay-at-home mom and aggressively identifies as frugal. I guess we were still in high school, but we were 18. Me and my buddy Ferris were just getting into going to the gym. We went with Ferris's friend Tom. After working out, in the changing room during some small talk, I saw Tom putting on a shirt. Tom put the shirt over his head, but didn't put his arms through the sleeves. He managed to pull the shirt over his torso so that it was adequately on before wiggling all about and bending his arms in odd ways to get them into the sleeves. I didn't take much notice to it the first few times, but after a few months it was apparent he did this every single time. Tom didn't know how to put on a shirt, at least efficiently. Eventually we asked Tom why he put his shirt on like that, and he said something along the lines of, "Wait, what? Don't I do it the same way you guys do?" I guess he had never really thought about it before then. I know a lot of guys that do this. I think it's more of a societal split than you realize. When I first met my ex, he didn't know how to cook. 40-something-year-old at the time I met him. He only knew how to use a microwave, and the best thing he thought of cooking was chicken thighs. Chicken thighs cooked in the microwave. Everything was cooked in the microwave. Wet, soggy, colorless flesh with no flavoring. That's not how it works. That's not how any cooking should be done. The microwave sometimes doesn't cook things evenly, so some of the thighs were raw on the inside. Our kitchen sink has one tap. Two things. Don't know what they're actually called. For hot and cold. I walked into the kitchen and my partner kept switching between hot and cold. Asked him why. Well, the hot gets too hot, so I run the cold instead for a bit. He didn't know you could run the hot and cold water at the same time. Two things. Knobs. A girl my cousin and his GF set me up with. Things were actually alright, we connected via similar hobbies and interest. Then about 3-ish weeks after we met, I ran over to her place for reasons and made a joke about how her laundry basket looked like it was about to explode. To which she responds, "Oh, my mom comes by on Tuesdays and does my laundry." Fast forward a bit and I learned that she at 25 didn't know how to do laundry, cook, clean, beyond moving stuff, take out trash, how the dishwasher in her apartment worked, or actually pay her own bills. It was all taken care of by her parents. They would come by every couple of days and do some laundry, dishes, etc, and she would just occupy space in the area, I guess. I did try and teach her some basic things, but it was a constant battle of "but my parents will do it for me," or "that's what Uber Eats is for," or various replies like that. I eventually had enough of it and told her I'm done unless she can learn to do well everything her parents do for herself. Cousin and his GF had no idea the girl was like that work friend of his GF BTW, and didn't believe me for a while till the GF went to this girl's place to drop something off, and there was the girl's mom doing laundry and making breakfast. And I did have a few run-in with her parents, seemingly glad I was there to help look after and take care of her. College roommate did not know how to wash his body. Yes, the smell. After a week we threatened him. He took a shower. We sent him back again, with soap. 3 days later he stank again. We told him to shower every day. Then we taught him how to do laundry, and bought him a coat because he did not own one. In Cleveland, in the winter. Full genius dude. Invented a Wi-Fi security standard later on, but no idea how to care for himself. My best friend was sleeping with a new guy. She said she wasn't sure of his private history, but she was on the pill to prevent STDs. I was like, she's a smart girl. From a very traditional Chinese family. They never discussed fricking or anything, and if I recall, she actually didn't attend health class with us due to her parents opting out. I taught her everything she knows. I even had to teach her about lube and blowjobs. So hey, she's happily married now, and no, she doesn't have crazy STDs. My mom and I moved in with my grandparents when I was 10 years old. You know, old enough to have learned how to do some basic chores, and certainly old enough to be taught more. Unfortunately, my grandmother, God bless her, was not only terrified of fire. Her mother had a problem with accidentally setting things on fire, but she was also a neat freak that insisted on doing everything herself, so it was done right. My mom married my step-dad when I was 14 years old, and we moved into a house together as a family. He was horrified to learn that, at nearly 15 years old, I did not know how to wash and dry my own clothes, iron, load a dishwasher, or even use the stove. I could use the oven because I baked with my other grandmother when I visited, but I had never used the stovetop. There are many more things he had to teach me, but those were the things that really had him worried about my ability to care for myself as an adult. It wasn't that my grandmother didn't want me to be able to care for myself. Her fears were just so intense that she didn't think about how not knowing these basic skills would affect me later in life. I am forever grateful to my dad for being the dad I needed, because God knows the biological one couldn't be bothered. Mum couldn't overrule her own mother when we lived with her, and by the time she married dad she was sleeping at the hospital 5 nights a week because her schedule was so insane. I don't even want to think about who I would be if I hadn't had him to teach me, but I'm pretty sure I would have had to live off of chocolate chip cookies, brownies, and takeout through my 20s if it weren't for him. I probably would have smelled pretty bad from the lack of clean clothes too. Hero stepdad is a hero. This is kinda gross. One of my ex's roommate at uni started complaining his dong hurt. So they asked if the underneath was sore and he said no, it's just like round the end. So they asked if he'd peeled back his foreskin to look. He looked at them blankly. So they said, you know, like when you wash under it, blank look. You do wash under your foreskin, right? He did not, because no one had ever told him to. He was 21. This is in part due to being rich enough to be out of touch, and in part a general lack of general adult skills. In college, I had a friend named Molly. She was a couple years younger than the rest of the people in our group and still lived at home with her parents due to their very strict culture and beliefs about how an unmarried woman should not live away from home. But her dad was a doctor and also had family money, so they were quite wealthy for our area. The sort of wealthy where for her 16th birthday, they bought her a Porsche, and when they didn't think she thanked them adequately for it, they returned it. Anyway, I remember when the group of us were at some of the guys on campus apartment, their toilet clogged. Molly, without really blinking, said we should call our plumber to get it fixed. Of course the guys were like, no, it's just clogged. Why would we call a plumber? To which Molly, who was very confused, replied, because that's what plumbers do. Why would you do it yourself? So we then explained first, how expensive plumbers are, and second, how the average person does not call a plumber for a slightly clogged toilet. Molly was confused and then asked, well, what do you do when a light bulb burns out? Change it yourself? And obviously, we were all nodding and saying yeah, absolutely. So that was when we discovered just how sheltered and out of touch Molly was with how normal people do things. We specifically learned that she didn't know how to do laundry, change a light bulb, plunge a toilet, cook literally anything, put gas in her car, all because either their maids did it for her. Also worth noting, having maids is extremely rare in our area, or her dad did. It blew her mind when we explained that those are very normal things to know how to do and ended up showing her how to do all those things. She really hated it, but it did a lot to make her a more self-reliant adult. Her parents really sheltered her so much, so it wasn't totally her fault. My friend is a very sweet, intelligent, and lovely woman. At her core, she is amazing, but just the way her parents raised her and kept her sheltered is where these issues came from. She is doing very well for herself right now and has learned a lot and has generally been very open to it. At the time of these stories, it was still very near the beginning of her having any semblance of freedom, so these examples come from literal first opportunities to show her what skills many adults have. I hope I haven't painted her in too bad of a light, because she really is a sweet girl and has worked hard to open her horizons now that she even knows what horizons are out there. We have toilets with very powerful flushes and they have literally never clogged in the nearly 10 years since we bought the house. My children probably have no idea how to plunge a toilet. Thank you for bringing this to my attention. I will put this on my list. Had a guy constantly asking what time JT is. By the 6th time I said, bro, there is a clock right there. He said, I don't know how to read it. Grown but man. Couple weeks later on Facebook, someone shared a picture of cursive writing. He made fun of the people who couldn't read it. I posted a picture of a clock and said, what time does this say? He blocked me. When I taught students how to tell time in French, I found out many didn't know how to tell time at all. My friend getting ready to microwave leftover fish with tin foil covering the top. He was about to press start when I managed to get to him. If you write a check, you actually have to have that amount of money in your account. Another gem I remembered from working at a bank. No, the bank doesn't keep record of your cash transactions. We have no way of knowing if you paid $6.97 in cash at the dollar store. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.